Oh, October 7th, false flag. No Israelis died. No Israelis were taken hostage. It's all bullshit. And I believe that at the very least, I can make an argument that warrants an investigation. Right? It's definitely not cut and dry. It's definitely not obvious. Like how there's an obvious genocide taking place right now, where, you know, you can just find an endless fucking supply of videos showing the Palestinians being killed, being herded into pens where they're shot at trying to get food, you know, the starving videos of amputees. Like my Instagram feed, yo, Karen, my Instagram feed, the videos that come through my Instagram feed are just appalling. It's shocking, and it's all one-sided. There's no videos like that coming out of Israel. The videos coming out of Israel will show like picnics and shit, or it'll show settlers attacking civilians just trying to survive. But you won't find anything, nothing, to make this seem like a war. You know, I always compare it to the card game war. Right? It's not considered war until you each have the same card to start. Once you each have the same starting card, you know, we each lay down a 5 of diamonds, then you go war, and each person puts down a card that's face down, and then they put down another card. And then somebody gets the spoils, that the big pot of cards. And that'll keep, if you happen to put down the same card again, you repeat the process. It's only war when it's even. And we're talking about one side having nuclear weapons, fighter jets, F-35 fighter jets that can fucking fly all crazy shit. The best of everything, the best tanks, the best helicopters, the best jeeps, the best guns, the best missiles, the best, you know, everything. They have the best versus people who have been under blockade and you know, been systematically and slowly genocided for the last 75 plus years. These people have rocks, sticks. Most of the men have been taken hostage or killed already, so it's generally just, you know, teenage boys and women that are being killed now. This is not a war by any means. And anybody that calls it that is just an insensitive prick. Because this is a genocide. This is a one-sided beatdown. And it's supposedly all because of this false flag October 7th attack, of which I called it for months beforehand. Months beforehand, I was saying, I will quit doing live feeds if Israel doesn't do some sort of false flag, which will then lead into the genocide by December of 2023. I was saying it 6-7 months in advance. Then that's a strategical and logistical fair start. Not sure what you mean. But the you know, the narrative was playing out that this was going to happen. I'm not some psychic. You know, I actually thought it was going to be, I didn't think they would do it as quickly as they did. A week after putting Israel into the visa waiver program. I thought they'd wait at least a few weeks, a month at least. I knew as soon as they put Israel into the program that was like the final piece and they were going to start bringing them here. Sweet. But this was, you know, obviously lining up long beforehand. They were putting all the pieces in place well beforehand. And it was, you know, I mean, I don't know how other people don't see it. Early in 2023, when Israel buys 42,000 slaves, supervised laborers from India, Israel buys people from India. 38,000 earmarked for construction, 4,000 earmarked for elderly care because even they don't want to take care of their own. And those were the jobs the Palestinians were forced into. And if you're brought over from one place to another place specifically to do one job, you're not allowed to change jobs. You're not paid well. It's none of those things. You're a slave. Visa waiving, construction, and care work. I mean, this is, you know, if those are the jobs that the Palestinians are going to do, or already do, and it's not like they had this surplus of jobs, how is that going to work out? Where are the 38,000 Palestinian construction workers supposed to go? And now we know. I mean, according to the narrative, they've killed around 59,000 Palestinians. It's been in the 50,000s for over a year. Somehow. It's more like 300,000. But the way it's reported, about 59,000. But it was, you know, from the 2022 election when they distracted us using Kanye West and Kyrie Irving and then Dave Chappelle, but mainly Kanye West, so they could put Netanyahu, Bezalel Smotrich, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Avimo, this super supremacist coalition, you know, fundamentalist conservative is what they would call it, this ultra conservative. No, they were supremacist. When they put that supremacist coalition in, including 2 war criminals and 1 guy under indictment for war crimes. And I don't even know Avi Moaz's background. It could be even 3 guys guilty of war crimes. You knew what was happening. You could see it start to happen. And then they did the fake protesting every week, every Saturday from January until October. The people would come out and protest because the executive branch and the judicial branch weren't seeing eye to eye. Because the executive branch was going to limit the ability to scrutinize. Oh, they were going to limit their ability to scrutinize. That was the narrative. They were going to limit the judicial branch's ability to scrutinize. And the reality is the only real time or times that the judicial branch ever went against the executive branch was when the executive branch wanted to kill more Palestinians. So it was, you know, it was all about killing Palestinians. But the people, they weren't protesting because, you know, they were protesting on behalf of the Palestinians. No, they were protesting apparently because the executive branch and the judicial branch were in a tiff. Can you even imagine that today? Here in the States? Can you imagine that the judicial branch and the executive branch aren't getting along on something because the executive branch is trying to limit the powers of scrutiny? Actually sounds very familiar. And instead of like doing what we do, every week on Saturday, we have these huge protests where we block the roads and we have bonfires in the middle of the highway, and you know, there's bathrooms and it's a very festival atmosphere. And of course, the news will call us freedom fighters at that point, right? Because that's what they called the Israelis that did that. Freedom fighters. When it's black people blocking roads because they're sick of black people being killed by police, those are thugs. Those are hooligans. though they need to be dealt with. But when it's Israelis doing it, those are freedom fighters. They just so it's funny how you have my one detractor on here who again isn't saying what I'm getting wrong, but attacking somebody for agreeing with me. Like this is even an argument. Like there is an argument here. There's no argument here. Nothing I'm saying is false. And so as the different like legislation would come in, because the limiting of the scrutiny came in like 3 or 4 different pieces of legislation, or 2 or 3 different pieces of legislation. So the first part would pass, and there would be a petition signed by tens of thousands of Israelis that, and as a form of protest for what was going on with the government, with the executive branch and the judicial branch not holding hands, that as a form of protest, if you know, some sort of conflict were to arise, some sort of, I don't know, genocide were to happen in the next few months, year, that they would refuse to fight, because all Israelis at 18 serve in the military, so they become reservists. And if you get called up as a reservist and you refuse to show, that's called desertion. That's a punishable offense. However, as a form of protest, the Israelis were allowed to sign petitions saying, you know, just in case October 7th were to exactly happen, that they wouldn't be called up. And of course, when this narrative is coming out, you have Jake Sullivan reassuring Netanyahu and company that for every one of theirs that signs the petition and refuses to fight, if some conflict were to happen, if that we would send 2 in their place. And this is how, you know, from 2022 to 2023, this is how this whole thing set up. It was just obvious. And this is the way it worked out. And it's obvious that it's a narrative that was put in place a long time beforehand. And then you hear these stories that Egypt warned Israel that was going to happen because Hamas put out a memo saying that they were going to kidnap 200 Israeli hostages and they were going to do like, it's all just bullshit. You know, right away they were calling it Israel's 9/11, and it really was, in the fact that it was such a dumb bunch of bullshit. Like the part that never gets focused on, but is almost the biggest part of this, is that the most advanced security system in the region failed for hours. And in the case of Israel, it was hours that this supposed attack was happening without any response from the military. But it's all just stupid, because they're like, Hamas isn't real. Hamas is just a boogeyman. It's just an Al Qaeda. You know, you guys remember, I don't know, a year or 2, 3 years ago. It was after 2023. It was after October 2023. So it had to be within a year and a half or 2 years ago. But out of the blue, ISIS attacks a Russian theater, killing 120-something people. And ISIS, of all things, ISIS comes out of nowhere to attack a random event in Russia and then just disappears. They hadn't been active in 10 years. And suddenly they just come out of nowhere. Hey, we're going to attack. Oh, by the way, that same day, that we were all concerned with 126 people, and I think it was 126, I don't know, somewhere around there, people killed in Russia. Israel attacked 2 different hospitals, killing at least double that. But it didn't matter because it wasn't ISIS. It wasn't ISIS. I mean, if you just look at the narrative we're given, so apparently Hamas put together this plan to, throw a couple of rocks at the beehive, stir things up, stir up the hornet's nest really bad, bring a genocide to their people, and there was zero backup. They didn't have a second strike. They didn't have any sort of, secondary anything. They've literally been it's been nothing. They had all their eggs in this one basket. They supposedly shot they were supposedly procured 5,000 rockets somehow in an area that's been under severe blockade forever. I mean, the Gaza flotilla happened in 2010. And that was literally Greta Thunberg before Greta, 15 years earlier. Where you had a group of ships carrying supplies, trying to bring food and medicine into Gaza, where instead their ships were illegally attacked, seized, and boarded by the Israelis in international water. One ship full of people fought back, and apparently one Israeli soldier was killed and several others were injured, but no proof of that exists. And 9 members aboard the ship were killed, 6 of which were execution style. When Israel did its investigation into itself, it said that, well, the people on board attacked the Israeli pirates, the Israeli, saboteurs who were coming aboard their ship, which they weren't supposed to do. They were just supposed to let it happen. And because they attacked, Israel had no option but to defend themselves. So that's how 9 people in the Gaza flotilla were killed, 6 of which execution style, because Israel was defending itself. God damn it. They're Hamas hang glider capers. Well, I mean, like I said before, just in case you question the narrative, the insanely stupid narrative that Hamas used paragliders to attack Israel, just in case you were, crazy enough to question that, Hamas put out a training video they made where they filmed themselves operating paragliders, and then they uploaded it to Hamas.com or wherever it is they upload videos. But, just in case people were questioning the Israeli narrative, Hamas decided to upload a training video. Does that make sense, right? That makes sense. But apparently, Hamas, being funded by Iran, of course, was able to procure 5,000 rockets. I mean, again, these rockets are so expensive. How much do missiles cost? Some missiles can cost a few $100,000, while others, like advanced interceptors, can cost tens of millions. For example, Sidewinder missile costs around $472,000. Air-to-air, surface-to-air. Other cost. A single Patriot? No. How much do Hamas missiles cost? The cost of Hamas rockets vary. These rockets estimated to cost between $300 and $800 each. Okay, so well, yep. So between $300 and $800 each, they can create rockets that can destroy Israel. Now I'm definitely believing it. These are the short-range rockets. The longer-range rockets, which include the R-160 and Sigil, are estimated to be in the low thousands of dollars per rocket, or approximately 2 or 3 times more expensive than the shorter-range ones. These rockets can strike cities like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Katyusha rockets. These rockets, also favored by Hamas and Hezbollah, typically cost around $300 each. It's important to differentiate between the cost of manufacturing these rockets and the cost of intercepting them. Yeah, because see, this is what my buddy told me, that Hamas is brilliant because they're committing economic terrorism against Israel, because they launch a missile that costs a few $100s or a few $1,000s towards Israel, and Israel has to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in rockets to intercept those. That's what they're about to explain to you. Israel's Iron Dome uses Tamir interceptor missiles, which are estimated to cost in between $20,000 and $100,000 each. Some sources suggest that 2 Tamir missiles may be fired at each incoming projectile, further increasing the cost of interception. The cost disparity highlights the strategic asymmetry between Hamas's low-cost rockets and Israel's high-tech defense system. Jesus. Here's a Reddit. Let's see what this says. Cheap missiles versus Iron Dome. Was looking at the latest IDF tweets. 6,900 plus rockets fired into Israel since October 7th, with a failure rate of roughly 15% versus Iron Dome missiles that cost $50,000 apiece. To Hamas, that's just $1.4 million in cost. Each rocket is only about $200 to $300 to make. But to Israel, it's almost $350 million in total missiles. Is this sustainable long term? It's just so stupid. First of all, where does Hamas get $1.4 million from? If that is the case. They can't procure fucking lumber. You know, the blockade that's around Israel is total. They can't get medicine. They can't get food. They can't get anything but apparently rockets. Rockets and rocket launchers, because on October 7th, Hamas fired 5,000 rockets at Israel in the first 20 minutes. So in the first 20 minutes, so in the last 2 years, basically, a year and a half, year and 3/4, it says Hamas fired 6,900 rockets towards Israel. So in the first initial 20 minutes, they had 5,000 of those rockets. And since then, it's only been 1,900 rockets. Israel brags that it has a 99% interception rate, which only happens because it's Israel who's actually firing the rockets. All right, we got another 20 minutes. I'm going to try one more time. We'll see what happens. They're clearly not happy with me today, so let's see if we can't break through this blockade. We'll change the title a bit, so not to erase too many suspicions. Pedophiles, kill yourself.